subject lesson in economy, B.B.King rarely used more than a handful of notes in his soloing. This diagram shows the area of the fretboard covered by the first two positions of the blues scales in B. I've coloured blue all the notes used by B.B.King in the intro solo on the original recording, which we'll take a close look at in a moment. As you can see, he very much likes to work the top three strings. Also, he isn't afraid to add in the odd chromatic note, shown here on the top string 11th fret in half transparent blue. For the purposes of musical orientation, I've also coloured the key notes, B notes in this case, in dark blue. BB uses such subtlety of timing and technique that his solos are notoriously difficult to tab out with any amount of real accuracy. But I've had a go at producing a simplified version of a tab for this solo, and you can download a copy of that as a printout from the toolbox to the right of the screen. And perhaps I'd say use it as guidance only. Now let's take a look at this intro solo lick by lick. Here's the first phrase. Plenty of vibrato on that first note, which is actually quite hard, and it's a bit tonally harsher than the rest of the notes. Vibrato is, in my view, one of the hardest techniques to master in all its subtlety, and there are a few better examples of its mastery than B.B.King. Now, to get a vibrato that feeds the maximum amount of sustain to a note, you have to use the mass of your whole hand and practically your whole arm to sort of wiggle that finger up and down the string, like this. And to get more subtle and softer results, you want to be moving the finger in line with the string, like that, rather than across it. We're not really looking for that sort of comedy doing effect. We're looking for more subtle, just addition of sustain. Okay, back to the solo. The bend at fret 10 on the top string in the next bar is quite slight. So but then the bend at fret 9 on the third string in the next phrase is a full tone bend. So the whole phrase in slow motion. And at full speed. Something like that. The next phrase contains one of the hardest techniques to get the hang of, vibrato at the top of a bend. So the difficult bit is here. And notice not only do you have to keep enough pressure this way on this string to keep it in tune, but then you have to feed in this vibrato effect just to sort of sweeten and intensify the note. Now, this is quite a hard technique to master, as I mentioned, so what I'm going to do is just sort of show you it in great detail, really. The trick is to first bend the note up to pitch, and you can check that pitch against this note here, fret 7 on the 2nd string. That gives you a guide as to what you're aiming for. And then when you're there, let the string come back a little bit, just relaxing the pressure a tiny bit. You can hear that, and then back again to pitch. And you simply do that many times, coming off the pitch and back to it again really quickly. And again, it's done by shaking from the wrist. Try not to do it with your finger muscles, try and do it with your wrist. And that's the end result. So after the bend, we're just playing the 2 notes there, the 7th fret, 2nd string, top string. And that's that phrase. It will take a lot of practice to perfect that technique, but it's a great one to have under your belt if you're going to play blues lead guitar. The 2 notes in the next bar are played quite lightly. So far then, altogether, showing you in slow motion, we have this. Which, more or less proper speed, sounds like this. On to the next line, which is played over the E minor chord. There's the vibrato at the top of the bend again. Notice I use my pinky for this, supported by the other 3 fingers. And I know a lot of you will probably prefer to use your 3rd finger. And I don't have a problem with that. I think it rather depends on how big your hand is. I find that a little bit too much of a stretch, so I prefer to use my little finger. So I'm suggesting to go with whatever feels most comfortable in this case. On the last note of that first bar phrase, you'll see to get the vibrato, I'm almost waving my hand. And if you watch footage of B.B.King or any of the other great blues players, you'll see them using that technique time and again. On to the next bar. So after this phrase, we shift up to the 12th fret here on the 3rd finger. So subtle and precise bending of the notes is the key to this lick. So you play the first note at fret 12 on the B string straight. Then the notes at frets 10 and 11 are very slightly bent on the top string. Then the note at fret 12 on the top string is played first straight, then bent up a half tone, then back again to straight. So all together. So the way to get this is to start doing it really slow, just concentrating on that order of bending really. Straight, slightly bent, half tone bend, straight. Sorry, that should have been straight, half tone bend, straight. Once you've got that sequence worked out, then it's a question of getting the timing right. And the way to count the timing is to think of a bar of 4/4, cut off the first beat as it's a rest beat. So we go 1 and then we play on the 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that way you get the timing nailed. Once you've got that, you can gradually speed the lick up. Until you've nailed it. It's not obvious, but that's actually one of the hardest parts of this solo to get right. So do be patient with yourself on it. Okay, here's the next phrase. Now those first two notes are both shown on the tab as being bent, but you can hear that they're not bent equally. You can also hear that the sort of two phrases that are very similar. The second one has a different rhythm. And you can also hear the second one is played so faintly it almost disappears. On to the next phrase. Again, using quite a subtle bend and return. You can see there, slight bend up at the 12th fret, then taking care to return it to neutral for the next note. And then we've got a pair of notes here at the 12th fret on the B string, the first one of which has a bit of vibrato, the second one of which is cut slightly short. So the devil's really in the detail, isn't it? Here's a quick recap of what we've got so far. First in slow motion. And here it is more or less at full speed. Okay, into the final straight. Again, very difficult to get this just from the tab. Nailing this requires very careful listening to the timing. Here's the first lick in slow motion. We play this note at the 12th fret on the top string straight, and then we play it bent, up and back again, and pulled off back to the 10th fret. Here's the next bit in slow motion. This is what I call a snap hammer-on. You play that note and then instantly hammer on the next one. So that's at the 10th fret, hammering on to the 12th. And then we bounce back off the B string at the 12th fret. So altogether we've got... And then we just play these 3 final notes, and again notice that echo-like dynamic, very characteristic of B.B.King. So altogether that's and at full speed. Okay, to help you practice, here's the whole solo played in slow motion. And here it is at full speed against the backing track. That's a great example of what I think we can safely call pure blues guitar playing. Now, B.B.King never played the same solo twice, so whilst we can get quite a bit of insight from learning his solos note for note and listening really carefully to the detail, it's also important to develop a few solos of your own against these backing tracks, using the hints and tips that we've given you about B.B.King's very subtle use of technique. Now, if you're watching this on the secretguitarteacher.com website, you'll be able to access the backing track to this from the toolbox to the right of the screen as usual. In the next lesson, As we take a step in a more jazz-like direction, we'll be broaching the subject of chord substitution, and we'll be using this song as a working example for that. So I look forward to seeing you in that lesson.